Instead of being sequestered off in a ballroom, this amazing event happens in the middle of the hotel, one of those that has the open, you know, atrium that's like, I don't know, 18, 20 floors.
God shining his light.
Just booming for 2 straight days, you know, brilliant. You know, Judy Mikovits gave it a brilliant presentation, and Bruce Lipton and so many other great speakers. Yeah. And it was an amazing event. Now, Advanced Medicine Conference, normally, what is it that advanced medicine represents, and you know, what was that? You know, what is that conference all about?
I think from an energetic standpoint, the conference is about showing how medicine should be looked at, not to keep it in its box and limited, but to advance and open the box so that we can strive to make greater improvements, which we know that this technology, I mean, if you look at technology, if medicine was like the computer industry, we would be like in a, you know, our computers, instead of our phones being in a device like this, we'd be in a 20-story building just to house the same computer technology, because it's so archaic the way everything's
You'd have rooms full of computer to run a simple calculation.
Exactly,
exactly. You know, right. You wouldn't be advancing.
Exactly. And so to me, that's a very important part, that we should be advancing, just like technology is advancing, you know, computers are advancing, telecommunications are advancing, travel is advancing. Why are we not advancing in medicine at the same rate? Why are we still doing the same archaic, you know, primitive, sometimes even things that are damaging and that are hurtful to people, based upon science that's outdated, that's already been shown to be inadequate, that's obsolete, that's pathetic, and yet we're still doing that type of stuff. And so to me, the Advanced Medicine Conference was to bring scientists and researchers and physicians together, and also the audience, to have the audience that really wants this information, to bring them together and to give them an opportunity to be actually able to see the advances in medicine. That's what the original intent was. We did our first one in Pasadena, which I was honored that you were able to come to. Yeah. And the second one was supposed to be Charlotte.
So we've obviously been in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic. This thing's been, you know, it's affected all of our lives, perhaps even contributing to some of the tensions now we see out in the streets in cities around America. When you were reaching out, when we think of advanced medicine, you're talking, you have everything, right? You've got cancer doctors and, you know, heart doctors and you know, brain surgeons and, you know, everyone's speaking, virologists. When you reached out, was there anyone that you sort of consider to be a part of your idea of advanced medicine that said, oh, I can't come, Dr. Buttar, did you know that there's a deadly virus sweeping the planet? Is there anyone that surprised you with that response?
So that's a great question, Del. What was interesting is when I sent out the message saying that we are not going to cancel, this was back in, I guess, probably late March, early April. When I sent that message out, I had 3 speakers that sent me a response within 10 minutes. One of them from India, Dr. Rogers, who was not able to come in. He was at the airport when they canceled his flight. All 3 of them said, we are so proud of you for not buying into this garbage, this minutia, this BS that we all know is false.
Right.
And they were so excited, they were so happy. Nobody canceled. Now, right before the event, within the last week, one of the oncologists, Dr. Victor Marcel Vega, very close friend of mine for over 20 years, he didn't come. And the reason he didn't come was because they were mandating blood drawing at the airport.
Wow.
And because he was coming from Puerto Rico. And he said, I don't know whether they've got anything laced in there. So he said, that's the reason I didn't come, right? Yeah. Dr. Rogers' flight was canceled. And there was, Dr. Matthews from New Zealand, it was a financial thing, because he said that we've been locked down for so long, you know, no business coming in. He said, I want to come, and if you tell me, I'll come in. I didn't know what was going on the last couple of days, so that's why I told him, I said, look, just, you can stream. And he streamed it.
But you did have people from New Zealand, from, you know, all over the world, Australia, and, you know.
We had people, attendees from Australia, from New Zealand, from Italy, from Spain, from Jamaica, from Canada, from Mexico, from Ukraine. We had 15 countries represented. I don't remember all. It was amazing. And just the spirit of these people that they, you know, I mean, we're in the middle of a lockdown. These people are coming from different countries. I was like, you know, just to be in the, you tell me, you were there, the energy of that place, was that anything you've experienced before?
No, it was absolutely amazing, because not only are these amazing conferences anyway, but realizing how important it was, right, to stand in the future, really, of medicine. Is medicine going to be owned by, you know, financial decisions? And what we're watching with COVID-19, protocols, locked into protocols of ventilators that are clearly killing people, and watching doctors just roll with the protocol instead of really checking inside and saying something's wrong here, like a few doctors, like Dr. Kyle Seidel out of New York. But I felt like every doctor was one of those, the Paul Reveres of their time, really stepping out and saying, let's speak about the truth. There's a lot of censorship going on, right? And so just to sort of move, you've had an incredible rise in social media just over the last couple of months during the COVID-19 pandemic. You started putting out videos that are hitting, you know, so quickly. We've watched you get into millions of views, and now there's censorship. Or this is something that I think we've been experiencing it for a few years. We've been at it. You know, you and I talked. You said, look, I want to get on video. You know, here's what I'm going to do. And you shot right out. What do you feel about, you know, first of all, you know, how bad is the censorship in the videos and the things that you're trying to get out to the public?
It's really bad. It's bad because you get 1 million views within 24, 36 hours, and then it's shut down. But the interesting thing is, Del, you know, my dad used to say that truth can't be really censored. You know, no matter how much they try to oppress it, it'll be known. Whether it's 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, you know, if 500 years after Copernicus's death, he was validated. So he said, don't worry about the truth. It will become known. And so when Snoop Dogg put one of our videos that had been taken off on his Instagram, you know, with 44.8 million, I was like, well,
there you go.
There you go.
There's always a way forward. We now, you know, just to touch on it, and, you know, I just had a very important debate, I think, with, you know, 3 people in the African-American community, all who I know that we share this value of medical freedom. And, you know, but perhaps differing views. You know, you yourself are of Pakistani
My parents
descent?
are correct, yep.
Is that correct? Grew up in America, served in the military, you know, and now you're dealing with censorship, oppression, you know, not being allowed into hotels, which normally you've heard those stories throughout time of, you know, being in a race or a class that doesn't allow, you know, your kind or your discussion of what's going on. So you've sort of seen all sides of it. You know, we were watching these, you know, these marches around the country and around the world on medical freedom being driven by COVID-19. You and I have been discussing what's happening as people are not being allowed out of their homes, having to wear masks. You know, this tension's building. What connection do you make? Is there a connection to be made, do you think, between this discussion of medical freedom and the discussion of true freedom, which means that, you know, we should be blind to race as we move. We should be blind to your religious beliefs. I think we should be blind to your medical beliefs. Those should all be your own, but yet they're not, and we don't seem to be being allowed to have the conversation.
You know, and that's the point, that it doesn't matter whether it's your race, your ethnicity, your religion, your creed, your nationality, whether it's your beliefs, whatever it is, it's the same thing. Whether you're being segregated out because you're a female, or whether you're African American, or you're Latino, or because you believe that there's a better way of a person to make a choice for their own health or their child's health, it's the same aspect. Our forefathers understood this. In fact, Dr. Benjamin Rush, he was the only physician who signed the Declaration of Independence. And in that declaration, he is quoted to having said that medical freedom should enjoy the same privilege as religious freedom in our Constitution, because if it is not, one day medical freedom will become, medical decisions will become a dictatorship, which is exactly what's happened.
Right.
And it's amazing to me how our forefathers could see the future.
It is really, I think there's something divine that happened.
Absolutely.
I have to believe that.
Absolutely. So one day medical decisions will become a dictatorship, which will be dependent upon one man's belief system, and in order to prevent that, medical freedom should be put on the same level as religious freedom. That's what
it
he
didn't
said.
happen, did it? We don't see it written there.
It wasn't written, but I think that's one of the things that we're now pushing for, that my goal is to bring the religious leaders together, because what happens to your body, it's the sovereignty of your own body, which is in all the monotheistic religions. In the Quran, in the Torah, in the Bible, it says the same thing. God gave you a body, treat it as a temple. And if we allow a government, in the words of Thomas Jefferson, to dictate the foods we take into our mouths and the medicines we take into our bodies, our souls will soon be in the same sorry state as those who live under tyranny. Now, again, our forefathers knew these things, so why are we allowing someone outside of our body to dictate how we treat our own body, our own temples, that the Creator gave to us? It's our sovereign right over our own bodies. Because if they say that they can have the right over our bodies, that's slavery. I think there was a civil war about slavery, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, maybe my history's off, but I'm pretty sure that there was a civil war that tore the country apart based upon the right of a person to have sovereignty over their own body. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Whether you want to say it's about medicine or about race, it's the same thing. It's sovereignty. It's our own decision to make what we decide to do with our bodies, and nobody should dictate that.
Especially, and I guess that, you know, the argument becomes, well, what if you're putting other people at risk, right? You can't go up and hit somebody. You can't make a medical decision that hurts somebody else. Which do you even believe in that concept?
Okay, so
is there a medical decision that can hurt somebody else?
Okay, see, you said when you hit somebody, that's one thing because you're infringing on somebody's right.
Right.
But a decision that somebody makes, that somebody is going to say that your medical decision infringed on me, that's in the category of stupidity. That doesn't exist. That's impossible. To say because I'm a moron and I don't understand how the body works and I think that I can wear a mask, which was developed to protect the surgical field, but because I'm wearing a mask thinking that this chain link fence I'm putting over my face to prevent a mosquito from coming in, and not understanding that I'm breathing my own carbon dioxide and I'm putting myself into a hypoxic state, driving my cortisol up, driving myself into a sympathetic mimetic state, into a flight-fight response, suppressing my immune system, and with measurements of lymphocyte subpopulations being suppressed. Because I'm an idiot and don't understand that that's what I'm doing, you should have to do the same thing. You should also hurt yourself just like I'm hurting myself. Because ignorance, my ignorance, I wasn't wise enough to empower myself with knowledge and get rid of my ignorance. And so because I was ignorant, you should be ignorant and you should suffer as well. No, that's not how it works. Freedom, again, comes down to you're stupid and you want to drive off a cliff? Fine. You want to drink alcohol and drive a car? Now you're infringing on somebody else's right. You should be restrained from that. But if I'm sitting here and I'm saying I don't want to take a poison into my body and somebody doesn't recognize that poison as being a poison in their body, that's their issue. That's not my issue. How can my independent thought process and my autonomy affect you? And it just defies all logic. There's no logic to it. And to say that, well, if you get this pathogen, you get this infectious disease, then it's putting me at risk. Why do you care? You're wearing your mask. You took your vaccine. You took whatever. So why are you worried? The only way you could be worried is if you really don't believe the mask is helping you or the vaccine doesn't work. And in that case, join the club. Right.
When we look at the tensions right now that we're living in, discussions about potentially locking down the country, some sort of, either, curfews, quarantines, things like that. It's hard to compare medical freedom discussions. We've been marching. There were moments in California, someone pushes a senator or, somebody threw, some blood off of a balcony in California, and there's a big deal that the anti-vaccine movement is getting violent. They're a violent movement. I've been reading this about myself. I myself really
You're a pretty violent person.
I know. I'd really try to just tell people, I can only say what I'm going to do. Given that, I'm sure you've seen all sides of this. You fought for freedom in this country. I would imagine you've experienced racism at some point in this country. What are your thoughts as we watch America, people really trying to stand up for equality? If we watch this police officer doing things that it's really difficult to watch these videos. How do we move forward? Are we in a dark place? Is this the end times, or is there beauty that can grow out of this?
I think it's